let's move to Power Platform news because we got a very interesting announcement too this time around.
Yeah, so the morning of Ignite, I wake up. Now, here I am on the West Coast, which is 9 hours behind Europe. And the first thing I do, and this is I'm a geek, is I open up LinkedIn. Hey, what's new? Who liked my stuff? And I just see everybody's talking about vibe.powerapps.com as a brand new thing. And it's very funny for the Europeans because it's only available on US based tenants or US environments within the tenant. And I'm like, well, what? Like, I thought, okay, this is exciting. And so I actually went and tried it out myself and wow, so if you've used the tools like Replit and Lovable, this is the Power Apps version.
Welcome, everyone, to the Power Platform Boost podcast, your weekly source of news and updates from the world of the Power Platform and the Microsoft community with your host, Nick Dolman and Ulrikke.
So welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Power Platform Boost podcast. We can tell we're having fun. We're recording this on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. I've been outdoors with the kids the whole day. You know what it's like in the back of a day when you're being outside and it's been like the most crappy weather you could possibly have. It's been raining and it's been 4 degrees. When you get inside after a day like that, your whole body is like hibernating or something's happening with the temperatures. I'm so hot and so overwhelmed and so tired. You're right. So this is going to go well.
Episode ever.
The best episode ever. Okay, so you want to try this again?
Let's try this again. So as we were attempting, this is going to be fun to edit. I'm just going to probably where you muted me. So we were saying last time we recorded was the week of Microsoft Ignite. And if you've been living under a rock, Microsoft Ignite is Microsoft's big dog and pony show where they're showing off all of their new shiny toys and everything. And when we recorded, it was actually the day before. Now we had the book of news and we didn't really want to The book of news before it officially gets released is pretty fluid, so it was kind of hard to say what would be there. And the other thing was, I think that version of the book of news might not have had everything that was even announced at Ignite, so it's kind of hard to see what the spotlight was going to be on. So we will be talking a lot about what was announced at Ignite. I was there. I didn't see a ton of sessions in terms of just because, first off, all the sessions are recorded. So I had that at the back of my mind, but just getting around the venue was massive. So just a little bit about Microsoft Ignite. There was like 17,000 people there. It was in San Francisco. Security was really high this year. There were protests outside of the venue. I didn't see too much. I did see a van driving by with a big shiny poster on it saying Microsoft ignites genocide. So there was people concerned about that. There were a couple people with megaphones handing out flyers, but of course they were kind of kept at bay with security. It wasn't in terms of any incidents, but in terms of getting in and out of the venue. If you had a regular pass, for those of you who've been there, you know this, you would have to go through like almost airport level security in terms of checking bags. In fact, I had a staff badge because I was working the experts booth, we did have a separate entrance, so we were able to get in a lot quicker, a lot easier. But I really feel for anybody that had just a regular ticket, because even to get from venue, like there was 3 different buildings, to get from building to building, you would have to pass through security again. And I could see that being very tedious. So overall, the expo was good. I did work 3 shifts at the expert booths, which I really enjoyed. I had some really good conversations with different people who I was kind of on the Dataverse booth, people who had no idea what Dataverse was, to other people that kind of cracked open their laptop saying, hey, I'm having this problem and this problem. Can you help me out? Give me some directions. To other folks too, because the name of the booth had something with Dataverse and Agent 365, which of course, Agent 365 was like the big announcement. So people are asking me like, so, okay, what is the relationship between Agent 365 and Dataverse? And I'm kind of like, I only found out like a day ago about Agent 365. So here's what I think it means. And I'm almost like reading right from the documentation. But actually, a bit of a quick shout out to Daniel Laskowicz, who was there as well. And he actually showed me some things with Dataverse MCP server and Agent 365, which helped ground some of my context of more than what Agent 365 can do for us. So that was really cool. Thanks, Daniel. Greatly appreciate. You're always there to help out.
So the keynote is what 2.5 hours long or something. And this time I found it was a really nice narrative because they brought it from end to end, a red thread, where actually they have a new Contoso. So what's the new firm called? Zora?
Zora, yeah. Contoso
yeah.
is dead. Long live Zara. Zara?
Yeah. Zora? Which is also a Fronteer company, which we will talk about soon. But also they had a narrative where they ordered t-shirts for the whole audience at the venue at the actual keynote, which was fun. And at the end, they had a guy come in with the big boxes delivering the t-shirts, which is a lot of fun. But also it kind of brings the whole thing together. And it's actually the devil's in the details, and it's the bread and the butter, and it's the thing you can do. And they kind of embodied something that was a bit abstract. So I think it was a smart move for them to work with something that tangible, and that all the demos played into the scenario and the story that they built, which I thought was a lot of fun. So let's just kind of go through some of the highlights that we are going to touch on and talk about a little bit more. First of all, I think we need to talk about what Fronteer Firms is, what Fronteer is. And I found it funny to see when I picked the highlights I wanted to talk about when I had an internal kind of tech talk about Igntite. And then I was like, well, Fronteer, we talked about this just a couple of episodes ago. And then we also talked about a lot of the other things. The last episode was about the forward,
deployed.
And so forward deployed, which also comes up a lot with the Fronteer Firm. So I was like, we're in the midst of it. We are kind of one step ahead, and I like to see that. Fronteer Firms, we'll talk about that, and of course, WorkIQ, FoundryIQ, and FabricIQ. We can't really not talk about that, which is massive. We are going to touch on Agent 365. And of course, news for PowerPlatform specifically with the Vibe stuff. And also I wanted to touch on the App Migration Agent. Do you have something that you wanted to highlight?
In the book of, So basically, all of these things, of course, there's like a ton of other announcements. I really want to dive into, we can at the tail end talk about one of my favorite sessions. And that is the Reimagine the Human Agent Collaboration. And that was put on, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, because to me, that whole session really made this real in a real world sense, and saw how I'm going to be able to work with this and how it's going to affect my immediate customers and things like the MCP servers and things like that. So those are things I want to touch on. But yeah, Fronteer Firms, it's interesting because if we kind of pop back to the, in terms of the news, I do have something in our news and updates. So it all ties in, segueing nicely.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it was an article that I found. It was online. It was in linked, but posted by someone called Ben Lee. And basically, his question on his article is, what exactly is Microsoft's Copilot Frontier program? And it's like an explainer blog. And he gives an amazing example of what Frontier Firm means, how you can turn it on for your environment, how you can turn it on for specific users, what it all means, why it matters. Like, at the end of the day, it is kind of beta testing or public preview, but overall, there is a whole strategy behind it. And there is actually some guidance on how you can deploy this in your own organization, so you're not willy-nilly turning on half-baked software, but you're going through it through a strategic way to kind of monitor and try this stuff out. And so basically, by doing this, Microsoft is getting real-world feedback, which I think is critically important, but also giving administrators tools that they can actually carve off sandboxes and have smaller populations of their users interact with the Frontier features that have been enabled within Microsoft 365. So we have that link in the show notes. It does talk about the different agents. It does talk about different aspects of Frontier. That, of course, that was a big thing at Igntite as well, was the concept of Frontier Firms. And everybody was kind of, for who didn't know, like, are we, I'm sure there's a lot of conversations where the CEOs were turning to their CTOs going, are we a Frontier Firm? Like, how do we do this? So hopefully, if you don't know what it is, we do have a link, and I actually went through the steps because I am a company of one. So I am a Frontier firm. I'm always trying out new stuff, and I went through the steps to enable the Frontier features in my Microsoft 365 Copilot tenant as well. So that's did you want to talk more? What was your perspective on the Frontier firms?
Just what you were touching on, the fact that it is kind of a collection of all the programs, because there's a lot of initiatives and programs now, and it's not just for Copilot. It also includes something else that I saw pop up this week or last week, which is the Microsoft Agent Factory, which is another one of the programs that is included in the Frontier framework mindset way of working-ish thing, because that's how I read it. It's more of an approach to AI and the new world than anything. So I brought a quote up from the TikTok that I did, and it says, Frontier firms don't layer AI on top of existing work. They rethink how work gets done from the foundation up. So it's a way to think about strategy and adoption of AI that Microsoft has already provided in a way. So it's a mindset, and it's kind of a strategic shift more than anything. And also just wanted to touch on the Microsoft Agent Factory. It says, IQ for every agent and choice for every maker, and deploy out anywhere. It's a new program that's designed to move from experimentation to execution, because that's also something we've heard Microsoft talk about. And I know I was at a conference at Microsoft in Norway before the summer, and they were all about action. We're done with the POCs already. Get to production with your AI tools and your AI capabilities. And this is very much a way to facilitate that with actually a single metered plan. So this has a lot to do with licensing and also how you work with the new WorkIQ, FabricIQ, and FoundryIQ. So, and also it's on top of AI forward deployed engineers and all of those buzzwords in one article. So we're going to also put a link to where you can learn more about Microsoft Agent Factory as well, which is now kind of part of the same it's one of the child programs within the Frontier program.
Yeah.
And also touching on that, so from your perspective, being at Igntite, how big is the IQ family announcement things? How big was that compared to other things? Was that a lot on people's minds? Did you talk a lot about it?
Like everything, it's sort of what does it mean? I think to me the biggest sort of thing was the Agent 365, but the IQ stuff really definitely comes in second when you talk about WorkIQ. So I mean, when you kind of look at the definition of WorkIQ, it really kind of makes sense. It's it's an intelligence layer. Look, here's a description that actually Google Gemini came up for me. So AI is using AIs. Microsoft WorkIQ is an intelligence layer that powers Microsoft 365 Copilot and other AI agents, enable them to understand individual work patterns, roles, and organizational context to provide personalized and relevant experience. So, I mean, I think what this means is it's reading data from your emails, from your own files, from your team's chats, and building a work memory around that. So I think already this makes people a little bit nervous in some situations, because I've heard of folks saying, well, you send an email basically like, hey, can you give me a follow-up on this project? And by the way, how is that foot rash? Have you been able to treat it, kind of thing, as an aside of the email? So these kind of things could potentially be surfacing and bubbling up in the WorkIQ as well. So again, it's all about, at the end of the day, I mean, AI is as smart as it is. It's really dumb. It's really looking at all this data. So it's all the context you're giving it. So I like the idea that it's building a work memory. And I know I work with other tools, which I work a lot with ChatGPT as well. And even the other day I was working on a workshop or a session or something, and it said, well, based on the background and what you've done before, here's blah, 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 the output. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I am feeding it system prompts in terms of my writing style and everything, but also it is remembering when you have those memory settings turned on, which it's a double-edged sword. It's good that it's, because my memory sometimes sucks. Like I'll forget things, but it also is going to pick up all of these other things as well. So definitely interesting. I think this is also going to be a work in progress. And then of course, the guardrails and the security are all around this as well. Like that a lot. Like, I could send, if I send you an email to say, here's your bonus this year. We're giving you a bonus of blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden that email could now be part of that knowledge context that it's picking up, right? Which if I'm writing something or I'm generating content or generating data around all of this stuff because it's my email or it's in your inbox, could the AI pick up on that as well? And then, so who knows, right? So this is interesting times, and it's great technology, but like with great power comes great responsibility as well.
Yeah. No, and I don't think that Microsoft would ever even consider announcing something or launching something that would make people nervous about their email content. So what you had access to before is not going to violate that security for sure. So it's not about kind of sharing details from your email with everyone else. It has more to do with kind of personalized for you, but also if it does that with your colleagues and the other ones as well in your office, it's more of a collective memory and also has to do with culture and kind of how you work and who you are as a company. I think that's what WorkIQ is trying to get at. What kind of company or who are you? Know how you work, what you do, how you do things. It is the collective kind of the things that we embody as coworkers and as employees, that is not always written down as well, right? It will catch up on those things. But it does consist of memory, the patterns, the workflows, the relationships, those kinds of things. Inference. So it's predicting actions. And that's probably one of the most interesting things here. It's predicting patterns in terms of tools and what you use and how you use them, and also how that's going to be adopted throughout your organization. And then it's also the memory part. So it's very interesting to see how this is going to tie into everything. And then we can move on to the FabricIQ, which is, so if WorkIQ is how you work, it's Microsoft 365, like you said, emails, notes, documents, SharePoint, all of the storage of that kind of data, then FabricIQ is more of the actual data that you're on top of. Imagine all the Power BI reports, all the data flows, all the Dataverse, data, PowerPlatform, all the data you have in there, it's looking at that as entities. And suddenly the entity phrase or word is coming back. It's now talking about entities and relational entities, how they relate to one another, to get a cohesive and holistic view of the data that you are working with, the data you produce and the data you store. So that in terms of a factory, WorkIQ would be the emails, the processes, the workflows, the how you do things as a company. Then FabricIQ would be the IoT data from the IoT devices, the output of your factory, the numbers for what you produce and when you produce it. That would be WorkIQ. So it has to do with the logic and the data. And then you look into FabricIQ, which is the knowledge and retrieval layer. This is where you have Fabric, but all these AI capabilities, the RAG style workflows and the agent patterns. All of that is in there. And all three of them together in one grid system, knowing about each other, that AI, that IQ foundation, that is the way of a Fronteer Firm. Has that as the basis. Right. That's the new foundation for the firm. And you build everything with that on top of that. That's the idea, as far as I can understand, at least.
Said this, I think you mispronounced the second, not pronounced, you said the second one was Fabric, but I think you meant FoundryIQ is the second IQ, right?
I don't know if it matters which order it's in.
WorkIQ.
The Fabric. So WorkIQ is the kind of the Microsoft 365 one. FabricIQ is the data layer. And then FoundryIQ is the last one, where you have all your AI capabilities and the RAG patterns and all the LLMs and all that jazz.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Okay, good. Thank you.
Cool. Well, now that we have all of this IQ and all of these agents, how are we going to manage all of this?
It's not all agents, though. I mean, one was really refreshed to see that it was not all agents. And I think also that's a part of the communication this time, is it's not all about LLMs and chatbots and agents. This is actually algorithms at work, structuring unstructured data. And we had a customer day the other day talk about AI. And I said, if you're going to take away one thing from this day, and I think this goes for Ignite as well, is that you've been collecting all companies throughout the world have been collecting data for a decade or more. And now is finally the time to capitalize on that data. This is when you actually get value out of the terabytes of data you've stored. So we're ready,
Yes.
right? We now have the tools, and it's not all just about LLMs and chatbots. So yeah, where do you think that all of the new fancy agents are going to be managed? Yeah.
Yeah. So, of course, I think that's also what I've heard. This, of course, we're leading into the other big announcement being Agent 365, which almost sounds like the next James Bond movie, like Agent 365. So, what's really interesting, it is that, that plane, that surface layer, that plane where you can, if in an organization, kind of get that centralized view of all the agents within your organization, sort of managing those. And I think, and not only that, it's also kind of a platform for like hosting MCP servers and things like that. So that was pretty interesting. That was something that really wasn't announced so loudly, but it was kind of this is what Daniel actually showed me. He says within Agent 365, as opposed to creating a place where your MCP servers will run, it will actually be a host for some of your MCP servers, which is really cool. Both Microsoft ones and then third-party ones as well. So if you're always wondering, okay, do I need to spin up, an actual Azure resources for this? Well, you can now do that within Agent 365. But of course, managing all of these agents across your organization as well, centralizing that. Of course, getting into DLP. Now we're beginning to weave in Defender and Purview and all of these things, which of course I talked earlier about security. And data loss prevention policy. So this is all tying it in, making it much easier for admins, because I've heard of stories of IT organizations or IT departments completely freaking out because all of a sudden people are creating agents, they're using AI, and if you shut it down, guess what? They're going to use other AI tools around you. So I have to say, you have to embrace it. And use these tools, and Microsoft is providing these governance and these security tools. Are they completely perfect? Not always, but they're definitely way better than letting someone use ChatGPT on their own personal account to do work information or do work analytics. And I already know this is happening. I was talking to a client and they're freaking out because they have external people that they can download data in Excel spreadsheets and they're doing analysis on their own AI tools. And they're like, okay, we need to stop this. But to stop it, we need to provide these people with their AI tools built within the context of our own sandboxes and security roles. So AI is not taking our jobs. AI is loading on a whole bunch of new jobs and workforce
if you want to work in security,
which is, holy cow, tell me about it. Yeah. So I know people like Chris Huntingford, who's doing a lot of work on, Chris will yell about Purview till the top of his lungs and talk about red teaming. And if you ever get an opportunity to watch one of his sessions, this is what it's all about. And I think these are the things that's really important. And you have people like that championing these causes is really going to make organizations do this properly. So of course, Agent 365 was a big thing. Of course, with it, a new icon, and I think we have a news article about new icons as well. So if you've seen the Agent 365 icon, it looks like an A with a little dot in it kind of things. Keep an eye out for that as well. If you're one of these sticker collectors, we were handing them out at the Ignite booth, and we had also Dataverse water bottles. So we actually had a bunch of these stickers and a bunch of Dataverse water bottles. So we were making Agent 365 water bottles.
It's like that with everything.
Yeah,
if it's not sold out by Christmas, it comes around for Easter. That's always the same thing.
Yes, exactly.
Just put a new sticker on it.
So did you have a different perspective on Agent 365, or did I miss something, or was that sort of?
No, definitely not. And also we've kind of, we alluded to the fact there was going to be big announcements at Ignite. And also there were some interesting and kind of leakages before, which was kind of prepared us a little bit for what was coming. But no, I saw the same thing you did. And also something that's been around since May, I think, the new Agent AD. So you'll have an Azure Active Directory kind of thing, Azure ID, which means all agents get their own ID as we do in the company. So you'll have agents on the same level as people. And that's kind of how it looks from the admin side, which is a bit stirring, I think, but also means that you can manage your agents. And I think also another thing that I want to kind of, that ties into what you were saying, you can manage all your agents across all the platforms from Agent 365 within the Microsoft stack. So even though you have agents from all around the other providers, you can bring them in here. And then that's supposed to help with the shadow AI, which is a big thing. We talked about shadow IT for so long. Shadow AI is a massive problem just because of what you just said. And so the fact that you can bring this in, and also the new collaboration between Anthropic and Microsoft and NVIDIA, those collaborations was also mentioned in the keynote and also talked about at Ignite. These tech giants are now pulling together and collaborating, and you'll now have Claude Sonnet in Visual Studio and as a GitHub Copilot, just as you would any other of those agents. It's going to be a first-party helper, a first-party Copilot, if you want, to help you code, which shows you the direction that these companies are growing in.
And the other thing about the announcement there as well is that Anthropic will be running on Azure servers or the Azure environments. So before they were strictly, I believe, on both Google and Amazon, but now Anthropic is going to be one of those tools that are going to be running across all the main data centers, including Microsoft. And then the Microsoft ones will have unique capabilities that are unique to Microsoft as well. So definitely that was a huge announcement. That news that came out, press release, I think the morning of the first day of Ignite. So of course that was highlighted as well as one of the big news items coming out of Ignite.
So
all right. So
let's move to Power Platform news, because we got a very interesting announcement too this time around.
Yeah. So the morning of Ignite, I wake up. Now, here I am on the West Coast, which is 9 hours behind Europe. And the first thing I do, and this is I'm a geek, is I open up LinkedIn. Hey, what's new? Who liked my stuff? And I just see everybody's talking about vibe.powerapps.com as a brand new thing. And it's very funny for the Europeans because it's only available on US based tenants or US environments within the tenant. And I'm like, well, what? Like, I thought, okay, this is exciting. And so I actually went and tried it out myself, and wow, so if you've used the tools like Replit and Lovable, this is the Power Apps version. Now, so this is the other part that gets me a little bit wound up. So they talked about,
I know what you're going to say.
The M365 app builder, which they talked about in Las Vegas, where it builds these little apps that talk to your SharePoint lists and good. This is proper. It creates code apps. So we've talked about code apps before, but up until this point, you would create that code app as a React app and then upload it into the Power Platform environment. And yes, it could talk to Dataverse and do all the security and all that other stuff. So what vibe.powerapps.com is really a front end, nice user interface to let makers build code apps, but using natural language. And I've played with this a little bit, and yeah, it's buggy, of course. It has to be run on a US based tenant. It doesn't always pick. It actually doesn't put things in your preferred solution in your environment. It does the little CR, whatever, underscores when it's creating tables. It doesn't always recognize all the common data model tables like plan designers finally getting around to doing. There's a lot it can't do, but there's a lot it can do. And within a matter of minutes, when everything was working correctly, I was able to generate some pretty powerful apps, and it kind of blew me away. And yeah, wow. So what's been have you tried it out?
Yeah, I tried it out. And also it's, if most of us have US environments, US early release environments, if you have that, you can try it out. And it was available for me on the same day as it was released. And that's pretty fun. I think I really do enjoy that they do that, so you can actually try it out. And in the beginning, the first run, the first part of the experience is very much like Plan Designer. And I expect that Plan Designer is behind it, or Plan for Power Apps, as it's now called, is behind it. It's also called Plans in the UI, where you go to make your plan. And then the experience of creating the app is pretty powerful. So it creates an app for you, and you can see and you can iterate, of course, using natural language, but you can also double click and edit inline text if you want in the app, in the user experience, which is pretty crazy. And what I thought you were going to say was, where is the open in Visual Studio button?
Yes.
Where is the
I'm just gonna get to
download
that.
code button? Yeah, you were? Okay, because I was expecting you to go there pretty quickly.
Because I've already ranted about that, because this is something now with the Power Apps, the single page applications, where you can create a React app and upload it within the context of Power Pages. You can download it into Visual Studio Code and start mucking around with it. This, I'm like, first off, I'm like, okay, that was the thing I gave the feedback at Ignite. Okay, I want an edit button, and I want that edit button to open up Visual Studio Code. The people I talked to at Microsoft acknowledged that. They said, yes, the editor's coming, and yes, we have talked about, no, maybe I can't say that, but.
No, you probably can, but you did, and it's fine. That's really cool. I mean, come on. So they do take feedback.
Yes.
But
So
you're
sorry, I
still
should
right.
say yes. And so then the next thing I thought, okay, cool. I see. So here's the mad scientist in me going, okay, I can see that as a code app in my solution. So I opened up Visual Studio Code. I got my pat command. Okay, here's the pat command to upload a code app. Where's the pat command to download the code app? And I'm looking through Learn, and I'm looking through the docs, and I'm trying things, and like, I can download a Power Pages single page application, but I can't download the code app. Because I thought if I could download this code app into Visual Studio Code locally, then I can start, because I have a few things I want to add, some other libraries and things. And I thought, could I convert this into a Power Pages single page application and upload it into the context of
Because
Power
it's
Pages?
React.
Yeah. So, but I can't do that. You can see the code. So if you want to do some copy paste crap, which I think that's really clunky. But anyway, so these are the wheels that are turning in, I think, not just my head. I'm sure everybody that's playing with this already. And already we're beginning to see with generative pages, people doing little workarounds and things like that, taking it to the next level. And I think we talked about this last time, the fact that, feeding it parameters that it can show up in line within a regular record and things like this. Generative pages, I've been building something with that and just completely blown away. Still can't deploy to my Canadian environment, which drives me nuts, but we'll talk about that some other time.
Last time.
We ranted about that. Yeah. So anyways, but yeah, so vibe.powerapps.com, realize it is in preview. So yes, it is buggy, and no, don't create production apps. I put a very complex prompt that had a very complex data model, and it came up with a stinking pile of poop. But I was able to go in and basically it's the very same kind of editor that you can move tables and add tables and make those relationships. Spent quite a bit of time completely cleaning up, deleting half the tables it came up with, bringing in a lot of the common data model tables. And then once that's all wired up, you basically you save that, and then of course the tool will go through, and you actually can see the reasoning, and it can say, the user removed this table and they said that was a requirement, so we'll just adjust this so it no longer takes that into account, blah, blah, blah. And you can look at that reasoning after the fact. So you not only get this magical black box creating you an app, but it gives you the reasoning and the breakdown of what it did to build it and put it all together. So I think it's still early days. I think there's still a world for model-driven apps, especially because it doesn't have the code apps to incorporate a lot of these features that model-driven apps have, even those little things and all that stuff. It's still very important, but we're getting to a point where it's going to be more of our system analyst skills, our architect skills are taking precedence over for building these apps. And even from a maker perspective now, they don't have to mess around with the power effects and things like that. If they can extract the requirements in natural language, they can start building some pretty interesting things. And definitely, strap yourself, like I've said this before, but strap yourselves in, kids, who are in for a wild ride with vibe.powerapps.com. So I know, that was a big thing for me.
Yeah, definitely it was. And also, but also, this is something we talked about, right? So the real world, even though Ignite comes around and these things are GA and it blows up in LinkedIn, the real world still goes on. And we had a customer that they need to go live before Christmas with a new, they're shutting off their old system, and they need a simple app for data entry for factory workers. We tried with model-driven apps. It's not good enough. We know that when we try something in the US environment with generative pages, it works. We can use Code App. It works. It looks great. We can't deploy it because it's not GA. We have to go with Canvas apps. And we have one of our consultants, one of the guys on my team, shout out to Stig. He's done a fantastic job and learned so much about Canvas apps. He's like, yeah, if there ever was a case for Canvas apps, this is this is it. This is going to be used on a pad, on one of those secure cases in the factory where the guys are just going to punch numbers. It's perfect. So if what I'm trying to say is, if you feel like I should be embracing this brand new world and there's this whole bunch of AI stuff over here, but I'm still stuck building model-driven apps and Canvas apps, don't feel bad. We are still, because the machine has to go on and the real projects has to be done and the real apps have to be done. So if you're in a time crunch and you have a customer who has that requirement and has a deadline and you can't wait, yeah, you use Canvas apps or model-driven apps, whatever it is that you need. So we're in this squish still, and it's not going to be until this stuff is GA until we can actually deploy it in production. And so, yeah, that's just how the real world works.
So as much as I love the concept of vibe.powerapps.com, the other one, I think probably one of the best sessions I got a lot out of was this session, and I mentioned it earlier, Power Apps Reimagining the Human Agent Collaboration. This actually is, the recording is available online. It's actually free for anybody. You don't need to have registered even. But it's been put, where did you go? Here you are. Sorry, I got screens all over the place. But it was presented by Miti Joshi, Evan Liu, and our friend Claudio Romano, which he's a friend of ours. And this session just clicked on so many levels with me, because they were showing a model-driven app, and they're using State Farm Insurance, which is one of Microsoft's customers who actually uses a lot of this stuff. And of course, it was a model-driven app. We work with model-driven apps. I've been working with model-driven apps for years. It came from the Dynamics CRM side, but it's now been more enhanced. So the very first thing when you look at it is doing sort of data analytics. So that's sort of when we talk about apps. So yes, we have all this data in, we've been entering it through forms and views, maybe importing it or integrating with other systems. But doing analytics with this, we've always had to go and write Power BI reports, or we create charts, or create SSRS reports. Well, now that data, and even if people are still working with it, we can now get agents to analyze this. And I can open up Copilot within my model-driven app and say, and this is what Claudio demoed, he goes, there seems to be an interesting trend around these certain dates. And it will actually look at this data and create summaries and analysis. And, this way in terms of reporting, as opposed to, it used to be, hey, can you write me a report or give me a dashboard or something? Now our end users that want to see this data can actually ask it, how many members signed up in the last 2 months? How much, project hours have been billed? These are the types of questions we can now ask our systems, which is really cool. So that was like the first thing they showed off within this session, which kind of like, yeah, this makes sense. So this to me is how AI is not taking over. We're not throwing out the old apps, but it's enhancing our existing apps, which is really cool. Now, the next one is something that we've already been playing around with. I've been using, absolutely love, is data entry. So it's very tedious for people to kind of key in all this information, get it into Dataverse or into Dynamics. Yeah, we've always had like the Outlook app where we could track emails that get attached to opportunities. For some reason, way back, not even that long ago, but Microsoft had the business card scanner built in as a agent builder thing. I'm like, who uses this anymore? But what they showed was, so there was the form filler, which is, I think, appeared in most model-driven apps now. If you haven't tried it, just try it out. You can actually copy a bunch of stuff and paste it in, and it'll try to fill out that form to its best of ability, which is pretty cool. To cut and paste, Windows V key is your friend in terms of cutting and pasting. But now they've added, or there's new features that are rolling out as in preview, but I think it's actually there where you can upload files. So if you have a PDF or something or a document, you can click on that, upload it will fill in the form that exists. But then they have a new button that's showing up. You can click on that and it can take a look at your emails, your Teams chats. It can go into SharePoint folders. And then you can actually take that. Oh, there's an email from Claudio. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to feed that into my data filler. It's going to fill out the form. So they were showing their insurance agents that were sending in these quotes from repair shops as attached PDFs. So they're able to go into the form filler. Hey, here's that email from this shop. There's an attached quote as a PDF, and it just filled in the form. That was cool. So then the next level, and Miti showed this, which is really cool, is, but it fills in the number a certain way. So she was able to go in and you can actually teach the form to act in different ways. So every time the form fills in a certain value, strip off the prefix or modify this number a little bit. So now that the form knows that, it actually will take that data and manipulate that. So, and this was like, they said it was hot off the press, and maybe I'm talking a bit out of school here because it was a demo. They said it was demoware. They did announce this, but Claudio said the pull requests were done that morning before they did this session. So this is how new it was, but it was amazing that all of this worked.
That's
so you're kind of like
data transformation in real time on your form, right? So data transformation is always hard and clunky, and then now you got it real time on your form as you're pasting in. The form knows about the data transformation before it's even entered. That's pretty cool.
But wait, there was more. So already like my mind is completely like, oh, this is so cool. So then they start talking about what the other announcement was, the PowerApps MCP server. So they're like, that's great. But somebody like a State Farm, they have a shared email box that gets thousands of these requests on a daily basis. So before, someone would have to go in and actually like rekey this all in. We're like, okay, cool. Now I can go in the form filler and click my email. But now they're going to be clicking all day. Wouldn't it be great if there was a way that it would just do this all automatically? So they on stage created an agent, and this agent basically was triggered to run every time a new email showed up in that dedicated email box. What it would do is they gave instructions, and they gave it actually the Dataverse schema because they said this code is so new, it really needed the schema. But they said when it goes more to public preview or GA, you don't need that level of detail. But then, so that was the triggering. And then they added a tool. They added the PowerApps MCP server for the data entry tool. And basically that's using the same data entry agent. So all the training that they did on the form entry, this agent will go through and start triggering every time an email goes into that box and fill in the form, fill in the data automatically. So if they get 1,000 emails, it's going to create 1,000 of these records and fill in all the data correctly to the best of its ability. And you're like, okay, but that's again, black box behind the wall, what's going on. So this is where the agent feed comes in, and the agent feed, you can actually go through and monitor. So you could actually click on it. You could see here's the PDF and here's how the form was filled out based on the PDF. Now, sometimes the agent would stop and go, I'm not confident that this was the right data entry. So it actually puts almost like a hold on it. So you have to go into the agent feed and see the records that require human intervention, the human in loop to review. And you can go in and review, okay, this stopped because it couldn't quite read the discount amount that was written in. So you can actually go and make that adjustment automatically. And once you're good as a human, you can click on it, it will continue on with the process. So, or you could even add approvals with that these have to go through a certain approval and that kind of thing. So it just, to me, it was, okay, this is where I can now go to my existing customers that are using model-driven apps and say, how long are you taking to fill in this information? Here's the form filler. Hey, is this coming in on email? Let's set up an automation or an agent that's going to read that email. You're still a little bit not confident about it? No problem. Here's the agent feed. So you can actually go through, as opposed to rekeying, you can now go through and approve and build up that confidence and build up the training as well in terms of how this model works and make adjustments, and then get to a point where, but also kind of have it raise flags or instances where it doesn't quite meet the criteria. So instead of spending hours doing data entry, now your job's focused more to dealing with those exceptions, which always you had to do anyway, but all within the context of a model-driven app that you might have been using for years, but now you're using agents to enhance that. So to me, this was the the reality of stuff coming into the Power Platform using agents and AI. And again, big shout out to Miti and Claudio and Evan, not Ewan, Evan, who just did probably one of the best hidden gems sessions of Ignite in my mind anyway.
That's just mind blowing. And I mean, the level of detail that you have to get into to kind of, because now I get the feeling that we've been generalists up until this point, right? So it's all been, wow, we can now outsource these tasks to agents. Now we're getting into the details because people are actually diving in this deep. And then I love to see that. And also, this also ties into, because it's not far off until they can do whatever we can do, right? So they can key in the data. They can key in the data based on a whole whack of different sources. And also, if none of that is good enough, or you needed to go grab fresh data from a, legacy on-prem system somewhere, you used to have RPA for that, robotics automations, and now you have computer use. So if I had to pick something that blew my mind, it has to be so. And of course, because I'm me, I get to choose two things. But I just want to highlight KUA. If you hear anyone talk about KUA, computer use agent, it is a way to have an agent act like you on a computer and understanding the user interface. You give it natural language things, log into this website, create a new, register this, or grab this data, search for this, or find this, or filter like that and grab that data. And then you can have it trigger something else or put that data somewhere. So it's kind of on the extension of what you were saying. If none of that solves your case, then you could actually use computer use. And the benefit of KUA, kind of, if you compare it to robotics automation, is that if the UI changed and you recorded the UI, push the button, it will push the blank space because the button moved. KUA understands that. It understands that, the save button moved or the registration button moved. It reads the interface and it deducts what to do. And it's more independent in that way. So it can actually work with the changes. And I also wanted to highlight one session that I saw. I'm not going to go into detail, but it's Scott Giro's advanced agent development with Copilot Studio. And if you have 45 minutes and you need to see everything that Copilot Studio can do, you watch that session. It goes through everything from the simplest configuration that you can do when you create a Copilot agent and all the way to KUA in 45 minutes, and you follow along, and it's in the pure kind of Scott style. The way that he presents is always fun and light and understandable. And I also got the whole thing. And it's multi-agent orchestration. It's code app. It's a code interpreter. It's the whole kind of spectrum. It blows my mind. So yeah, that's one to watch.
Yeah, I did say I was going to go and heckle him on that, but I was stuck on expert booth duty that it over cringed the time. And then I realized even if I had time, I looked at the recording later, that room was packed. Of course, everybody had the headphones on and everything like that. So I mean, yeah. So this is why I like the fact that there's recordings there. You can go back later, and then I can just harass them in other ways. So it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll put the links to that in the show notes as well with the session that you mentioned as well. And then I want to just touch on something that is not related to Power Platform. It's not related to anything. It's just I saw this in the keynote. I was like, wow. All right, so we're done. Right. So we got everything. Right. So gardening then, because did you see the migration agent with GitHub Copilot in the keynote?
I did not.
It's the far end of the keynote. They grab. So there's this guy. The thing is, the scenario is we have a lot of legacy apps, right? And a lot of our customers have that. You have something built, something custom somewhere some time ago, and you need to refactor it. You need to move it. What do we do with it? I was on a project 3 years ago, refactoring 109 homegrown application built on Delphi, right?
Wow.
These exist everywhere. So what you do is it's tedious because you need to go through it. You need to build the business case for it. You need to get the funding for it. And then you need to actually document it, what it does, and talk to all the stakeholders. And then you need to refactor it and move it and deploy it and everything. Meet Migration Agent, which lives in Azure, and you give it the background story. You tell it in natural language what it is that you need to do, where the app is stored, what it is doing. If you have code, you can upload it. If you have documentation, you can upload it and share what it is about. It helps you build the business case. That's the first thing it does. It helps you build the business case and what you need to do in order to get your stakeholders and the sponsors to approve that this is something that ROI-wise is a sound investment. And then it asks, right, so would you like me to document this then? If you got it approved, done. You want me to document it? Yes, sure, please do. And it goes through all the code and it documents the app. And then it says, right, so you want me to connect to GitHub Copilot to refactor this app and to rewrite it into something else. We recommend this architecture and these libraries and these and this. And you go, wow, good suggestion. Why not? And it goes ahead and it connects to GitHub Copilot and it creates the new code, refactors the whole thing and writes the code again. And it allows you to test it. So then you can write automatic testing for it. It has it all documented and you can just deploy it to Azure and have the documentation and all your stuff in your repo and GitHub and everything sorted for you. And then I watch this on the keynote and I go, right, this is PowerPoint. This can't be real. This isn't, because this is kind of, if this is real and this is usable now, we're done. Because all the new stuff agents are going to do and all the old stuff is already moved, then there's nothing left, right? Where it's like this. And I talked to one of my colleagues, he's an AI and Azure guy. And I said that to him. I said, if this is real, then we're done. So I don't believe that this is real. This is just demoware. This is PowerPoint. And he's like, well, actually, even if this is just PowerPoint, even if it's just demoware, but it's able to, what we know the LLMs can do today or general agents can do today, it can document very well. It can assess very well. It can build a business case really well. All of the things that is not code, if it does that well, like we know that it will, because that works today. If the code is 60%, it's better than anything you do today, because that's so time consuming that this is huge.
Yeah.
And I was,
But I still think there's having refactored apps before. Because it can be tedious, whatever. But I mean, if you have something that works, that runs on old technology, then for sure, I've been in projects where we converted a whole pile of Access databases and we brought them all into Dataverse and did the, kind of replicated the user interfaces and everything. I think but again, if you're a solution architect and you're guiding that process, then you as the value that you bring is going, yes, this is how the app always worked. And yes, AI can take that old Delphi app and boom, vibe.powerapps.com. And here's your new working app. Yes, it does all the business case and everything in between. And it can go through that whole process like we know all the co-pilots and chat GPTs can do. But the real value there is, cool, it did the business case, but this is where you want to, even working with the AI, okay, I'm going to challenge you on this one data entry point. People have been collecting like fax numbers on forms. If you just tell an AI to convert an old application, it's going to create the new one. Guess what? That fax field is going to be there because no one told it along the way. We don't need faxes anymore. We don't need the integration to the fax system. We don't need all this. So this is where I think you as a business analyst or solution architect can go through the process and say, okay, we don't need fax anymore, but we do need this integration to this other new service. So yeah, we're not writing necessarily the connector or that, but we're guiding that AI to do that. And then, but then the cool thing too is we think, okay, well, that's great. You're taking away my job. But guess what? All these companies that have a bazillion historic or legacy apps, why aren't they converting them now? Because they don't have the time. They don't have the resources. So finally, if we're actually have these tools that help us, and like I said, we're guiding this process. Hey, that old app that, yes, it works, but it's running on that old clunky machine that's underneath someone's desk that could fail someday that you can't replace the hardware for. That's an extreme example. But hey, with the tools we have now, we can actually convert that app in a matter of weeks, where if we talked a year ago, it was going to take a matter of months and a lot of resources to do this. So yeah, this is the case of things are changing, but also I think the skills that we have as developers, as solution architects, as business analysts, and like we talked about last time, the forward deployed engineers, that mentality, this is going to keep us overemployed. Like I said earlier in the episode, AI is not taking our away. AI is now adding a whole bunch of stuff. So now I'm no longer maybe a developer that refactors old systems. I am a migration analyst working with the AI tools to migrate old systems. Maybe I'm completely wrong, or maybe I'm being completely naive and on this, but
no, I'm
I
not
also
saying
think
that it's going to take our jobs away. That's not my point at all. I think because what usually happens is it's a lift and shift, because usually the organization, and that doesn't have to do with technology or us, it has to do with the people in the company, because they can't be on top of lifting and shifting and also refactoring, and also improving. More often than not, when we are in those projects, it's let's just lift and shift this as is now, and then we'll make changes later. But by the time you get there, something happened along the way, and it was all these integrations that you didn't account for, and all these little small details that you couldn't know about, that no one knew about, and all the skeletons that come out of the closet, they eat all that time. And then you get in kind of, when you want to go in and do the changes and make sure that you modernize and take account for how things work today and the new capabilities are in the new platform, for instance, the motivation is gone and it's a bit sour and all the money is spent. So if this can help to get that tedious work out of the way, so that I had a conversation with a friend the other day saying she was scared for her job. And then actually, as we were talking, discovering that, no, this means we get to do more of the fun stuff. And we talked about this before. You take the tedious things out of it, the amount of hours it takes to manually go through a whole app and document it when you've never seen it before, just to get it to do the groundwork for you so that you can actually read through and see all its contents and how it fits together. That work alone is worth so much compared to doing that work yourself. And so I think my point is that this will actually propel us into new development and doing the good stuff, and actually being able and having the time and the finances to make these apps better and customize them to the new processes or the new ways that they want to work. So yeah, I think that's what this got me so excited, because it is an enabler to get speed up and to build that business case and to get up and running faster, so we can get to the fun stuff faster. I think that's what got me excited.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I mean, it's funny because just due to logistics and me, the expert booth, I didn't get to attend the keynote in person, but I did, so I was, because that was the other thing with Igntite. The keynote was held on the other side of the city and there was busing and everything, but shout out to the folks shout out to, again, my friend Lisa Crosby. She got up at 6 a.m. to make sure she got her spot at the keynote.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I must think it's worth it. You look at that stadium, that space, that physical space, and the screens and the people and the sound. And I was just buzzing all the way from Norway looking at it. I was like, that looks so freaking awesome. And I wish that I was there. But yeah, let's wrap this up, because we're way over time and we've touched on so many new things and news and updates. And I think we'll just leave it at this. And we'll leave the show notes for you where you can go in and you can watch these recordings back. It is worth. I found, because I've looked at the keynote highlight videos out there and the sum up. I would recommend you actually taking the time to watch this keynote. For me, it was worth watching, worth the time.
And you can do it at double speed or triple speed too, if you want to go quicker through it too. That's the benefit of the recordings.
Yeah, that's true. And then we'll cover all the news and the events and all that stuff next time. You got a big update last time, so you can watch that back if you need that. Next episode, you put the date in here, is going to be December 19th, which is going to be our Christmas episode. So keep an eye out for that and have a lovely time until we see ya. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thanks for listening. And if you like this episode, please make sure to share it with your friends and colleagues in the community. Make sure to leave a rating and review of your favorite streaming service, and makes it easier for others to find us. Follow us on the social media platforms and make sure you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening to the Power Platform Boost podcast with your hosts, Ulrikke Åkerbeck and Nick Dolman, and see you next time for your timely boost of Power Platform news.